How you doing? I'm your host, Jamie Ceruto, president of the class of 2020 here at Millburn High School. I'll be starting a new series called A Message from the Office of the President, and I welcome you to our broadcast here live from Studio 462 at Studio 462 Millburn Ave at Millburn High School. Our pilot program will consist of bringing you the latest and greatest on school events, school news, and dive into the issues our students care about. And break it down with some of our own in-house guests. So currently Millburn schools are under negotiation with the MEA Teachers Union regarding their 3-year contract expiration, which took place on June 30th, 2017. What exactly is the MEA, the Millburn Education Association?
In layman's terms, some might think of it as a union. It's not quite a union, but the Association of Teachers. They're part of a group here, the Association of Teachers, which is part of a greater group of Association of Teachers, which connects throughout the state. Each one is their own bargaining unit, but they can act as a whole, so you'll hear sometimes about how the NJEA, which is basically their parent group, is helping with some of this and adding pressure when they can. But it's basically their own negotiating unit to negotiate for the teachers and some of the clerical help depending on where they're set up, and they work with the Board of Education to try to negotiate contracts and terms of the contracts, etc.
So this is something that we see in every town in New Jersey.
Yes, New Jersey is not unique, but unique in some ways that every town has their own school district. So every town has their own association, their own teachers association. In Newark, they are not part of the NJEA, so theirs is slightly different. So they're part of another group of teachers, Federation of Teachers, but they still have their own bargaining unit within the city.
So that's really, really interesting. So as a unique state with a school district basically in every town, every 3 years, at least from what I've heard, there are negotiations. What are teacher negotiations, and why is it something that needs to happen every 3 years?
Well, you'd have to be familiar with contracts. Contracts have terms of them, which means maybe working conditions, maybe vacation time, whether the teacher could be personal days, could be sick days, salary, benefits, free time, how much time do you teach. So these things need to be negotiated to determine what would be fair to both sides. It would be unfair to be able to put something together to say for the rest of your career, you're going to get X amount of time and X amount of days and X amount of money, and we're going to pay this much in benefits when things constantly change. So they believe a reasonable amount of time is 3 years to stay with a certain portion of the agreement, and then they go back and they look at it again in 3 years. In the best case scenario, they still agree to those terms, they agree to make adjustments where necessary, and they move forward. Unfortunately, we all know that it's a difficult time in terms of budgets, and the Board of Education is responsible for their budgeting for the town, so there's a limited amount of resources. So how they're going to divvy up those resources and share some of that with the teachers becomes a negotiation point, along with other terms, but a lot of times it has to do with monetary, whether it be the level of benefits or the salary or personal days or sick days. The success is a combination of the board being willing to work with this great group of teachers, allowing administration to hire the best people out there, but to get the best people out there, you need to be competitive, and competitive many times relates to salaries, and that's a difficult thing in this time for all districts to be able to be that as competitive as we would like them to be in terms of salaries.
So really, really interesting. So as from a student's perspective, myself representing my roughly 382 students in the class of 2020, how does this affect the students on a daily basis while negotiations are going on?
Okay, when negotiations reach certain points where the association in this case feels that they're not moving in the direction they would like and they need to make a statement, what they're doing right now, what you're seeing is they'll do what they call work to rule. So the contract says they need to be here from, and I could have it wrong, but let's just arguably say from 7:30 to 3:10. So the teachers do a lot more than that. We know that. You can find them in the morning and find them in the afternoon. So they're making a statement that, listen, we're trying to let people, the public, the students recognize how much more we give. And by just working our contract time, you're going to see how much more we do. And hopefully it goes home and says to the parents, hey, listen, this is what's going on. The parents knows what's going on. maybe that puts pressure on the board to get to where they want to. So that's a negotiation tactic that they have, just really to let the public see, look at all we do and what's not getting done when we just follow our contract, because we do so much more.
Right, so this really opens it up for everybody to see and hopefully causes a domino effect to speeding up the negotiations. So to clarify, so the negotiations are made by the MEA, Milburn Education Association, and our own Board of Education, correct?
Each of those units is represented by a group of people. So there's a negotiating team for the board. It's not all the board members, for the board. And there's a negotiating team for the MEA, and they meet and they try to work through this. And it's not, I would say it's got to be difficult for both sides, because like I said, we know there's limited resources and what to do with those resources, and that's the board's responsibility, and that's hard. But the teachers, and especially that group, they represent all the teachers, and they're trying to do what's best for their teachers.
So in the scheme of all this, the negotiations have began before the last expiration, correct?
Generally they do. I'm not in the day-to-day, but yes, normally they will start to negotiate before the contract expires.
So at this point in 2018, is there a certain time frame that negotiations technically fit in, or is it really kind of up to what's going, how everybody is doing?
Best case scenario is the negotiations are resolved before the contract actually runs out. So that last year of it is usually a lot of negotiations. There have been times, in my own experience here and in other districts, that it doesn't get negotiated through and they're still at an impasse. Education still continues, people still get paid, everything still goes. The only thing is it stays the same as it was. Nothing is adjusted. So you're working under the guise of your old contract, because we are legally bound to still educate the students. Teachers can't strike. Teachers can't really refuse to come into work. In those districts that have, teachers have actually been arrested. So they don't have that. So their real power is in just continuing to show, look, this is what we do on a daily basis. We don't want to take this away, but if we have to, this is what we'll do. And hopefully, before it gets too far, and this district has always managed to do that. I've never seen it come to that kind of an impasse. So I'm hopeful that the same thing will take place.
Well, really, really great. Thank you very much, Dr.
You're
Keenan. Thank you for tuning in today to A Message from the Office of the President. I'm Jamie Ceruto, President of the Class of 2020, here with Dr. Keenan, our esteemed Vice Principal here at Milburn High School. Look forward to seeing you next time.